Hi, I'm Alex Altman, and I attended the Winter Choral Showcase last week. It was actually called Two Truths and a Lie, and I found out at the beginning of the concert why it had that name. The choir members were actually mingling with the crowd, which I thought was pretty cool, and I got to overhear one of the guys mention that each choir was going to be performing 3 different songs, 3 different pieces, and 2 of them would be truthful ones that I guess kind of fit the choir, and then there would be one that is kind of set apart and a little fun interactive thing for the congregation, for the crowd, would be to kind of guess which one we think is the lie. So yeah, that was pretty cool. There were actually 3 choirs that performed in this showcase. There was the treble chorus, and then the tenor bass chorus, and then the university chorus. I thought it was pretty cool also. There are a couple people that I met on campus and made friends with either through classes or clubs or just different extracurricular activities, and I saw a couple of them in the choir, and I had no idea that they were a part of it, so that was kind of cool to see and then congratulate them afterwards and just kind of make eye contact during. I don't know. That felt kind of special. There were a lot of people in the crowd. A lot I overheard when talking to the members at the beginning were there for their intro to listening classes or some type of music class. But there were a couple that I could tell were either family. There were some that seemed like professors. And then there were a couple that seemed like just super avid fans, concert goers. I don't know. So that was pretty cool. I went alone, but I was surrounded by a lot of people my age, so it was cool to see their reactions, and it was nice to share their reactions as well. But yeah, so I'll just start. The first choir that came on stage was the treble choir. And so they performed 3 songs. The first song was called The Little Road, and the choir actually began using body percussion to begin the beat, kind of set the tempo. It was a little bit of a slower pace, so I would say more of an allegro. The body percussion was pretty mezzo. When the singing came in, it was more on the piano side. I'd probably say mezzo piano because they were still projecting quite a bit. It was just on the softer side, so it felt, a bit of a softer tone. So this song was performed a cappella. There were, it seemed, soprano and alto. There were 2 types of kind of voices being heard, and they seemed pretty homophonic and homorhythmic, and everything just kind of meshed together as they went through this pretty delicate song. That seemed like a truthful song to me. It just felt very natural for them. It fit all the voices well. The conductor was kind of swaying with the music, moving with the music, kind of flowing, and the choir itself seemed pretty somber and set kind of on what they were saying, staring straight ahead. The second song they sang was called So Restlessly On. The song had a couple soloists that performed. Once again, the conductor was moving their arms with the flow of the music, almost like they were dancing along with the music. That kind of kept the spirits up. It helped me kind of understand what I should be feeling when hearing certain parts of the work. So that was nice. And the final song was called They May Tell You. This song was pretty powerful. It started off forte. Shall I say fortissimo? No, it definitely started out forte. It kind of like hits you, so you're already feeling those emotions. It was a cappella and there were 2 melodies, so it was pretty heterorhythmic. They kind of mixed together, wove in and out of each other. At parts, there was some dissonance, and that dissonance definitely added to the effect of how we should be feeling, which is very strongly about what we are hearing. It seemed that one of the groups at times was kind of staccato and mezzo piano, so on the choir side, kind of like a da, 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 da. And then the other group seemed to be doing more of a mezzo forte and legato feelings. Kind of reminds me of Ratatouille when he takes a bite out of the cheese and the strawberry, and there's something going on over here, and then there's something kind of exploding over here, and then when it's together, it's just a big mix. I feel like that is one of the best ways for me to describe what I heard and how I felt in that moment. It was almost like each group was kind of singing back to each other, having a conversation, and kind of like bouncing off each other, adding, once again, 2 is greater than 1, so that kind of built up the strong feelings, and when that 2 feels like 1, even stronger. So it almost seemed like the instruments, which is just the piano in this case, and the voices kind of switched jobs. The voices were kind of carrying the percussion, carrying the underlying the background kind of music almost, what is being sang over, and it was almost as if the piano was also singing. Some of the emotions that I felt was almost anger. It could be a positive anger, just kind of anger at what's around you, but that's strengthening you. Determination was something big that I felt, just uplifting almost. Made me want to get up and do something, like, I don't know, drive a tractor. That was bad, but yeah. And at the end I felt was still powerful, because once you've been going like this and you kind of have emotions high, question is, how do you end that? Is there a safe way to end it and kind of not just leave you on a cliffhanger or kind of like lose everyone? And I felt like it ended perfectly. The word can was the last word, and there was kind of an emphasis on the ka, on the, I guess it's one syllable, but if we were to break it into like half syllables, there was an emphasis on the C, on like the ka, the beginning half of that word, and it kind of had a mini crescendo is what I called it in my head, but they kind of went from can, like piano to forte and that, and I feel like that was great. It was almost like a snap. It was like closing a book. The next choir that performed was the tenor bass choir. When this one came out, it had less people than the first choir. It seemed to be on a bit of a lower register than the last choir, which may have helped with the booming effect. But yeah, so the first song that they performed was Desperta Fera, which is Desperate Fox, I believe. It actually had 3 instruments alongside the voices. There was the piano, there were the drums, and then there was a plate, almost like a cymbal, that kept a pretty constant rhythm with the songs and was played at certain times to kind of add just a little something to it. So it seemed the voices were on more of the tenor and the bass side. The singing matched the piano, so that was pretty homorhythmic between the voices and the instruments. There was a time when it split to heterorhythmic, polyphonic, and that was when 2 groups, I'd say tenor and bass, split off. The tenor kind of sang Desperta Fera over and over again, some repeating. Then there was some calling back and forth at the same time. The bass was saying the words "rise, iron, rise." And listening to the song, it's pretty evident what I'm saying. It's hard to put it into words. But those were also working at the same time. This is another one of those where it just kind of meshed together. And then at the end, there seemed to be a key change. It was major at most times. It had a little switch to minor and then back to major. So the second song they performed, actually, it seemed to be a pretty constant and steady, unchanging kind of piece throughout the whole showcase and the whole time that it was being performed. But it actually stood out a bit to me. I'm a big Schumann fan just because I've got some German roots and I kind of tapped into that back in the day. So I've done some studying up on the German language, things like that. So this song, just speaking that, I felt like a little special because I understood a bit of what was going on. So the second song that I really enjoyed was called Wenn ich ein Vogel war. It means if I was a little bird, if I'm not mistaken. Being that the song was kind of unchanging and static almost throughout the whole performance, but what was there is that it was sang in a very piano dynamic. It was very soft. When I think of a little bird, I think of being soft with it and being kind of, just kind of taking good care of it. But once again, both groups were singing a homorhythmic melody, almost to the point that it was like it was one voice singing the whole way alongside the piano, which was, again, doing the same melody. So at first, I thought this might be the lie in this group. But then the third song came around. This song reminded me of the opera buffa that we learned about, the like comedic performance, because I don't know, I was expecting another song, another performance like the one I just heard, and this just wasn't that. This song was called Johnny Schmoker, but this seemed, I don't want to say immature in the sense of like immature, but immature in the sense of compared to the other songs in the showcase. It was a bit of a more like childish, happy-go-lucky type song. So throughout the song, there were even hand motions incorporated. It seemed to be a bit of a more lackadaisical, less stressful type song for the performers, although with the repetition that went on and the recalling that you had to do because there was kind of a pattern that it followed, and then it just reversed, so it would follow this kind of line of order. Then it would reverse and go the other way, and with each reversal, you gotta do the same hand movement. So the performers did a great job, the choir members, but there were times where, I mean, I would mess up as well, but it was just something I noticed where that one, there were a couple mix-ups, but it just added to the comedic effect, and it didn't take anything away from the performance. So this song was performed in a cappella, which is actually pretty ironic because they were singing and kind of alluding to different instruments, and they were making the sounds of the instruments with words instead of like stuff like that. It was actually with syllables of different words, kind of like split upwards. For example, the triangle was like ting ting ting. The trombone, they did like bum bum bum. So different sounds making the sounds of the instruments with their voices. Obviously, it didn't make the exact sound of the instrument. So it seemed to be more comedic for that as well, because there was a lot of over-exaggeration. Almost what if you were asked to recall what something sounded like after hearing it for the first time, I would say that's probably what I would do as well. And so the third choir that performed was the university choir, and this was a much larger in number choir than the other two. It actually filled up all three stands, while the others kind of were able to scrunch in the middle at times. The first song that they performed was The Times Are Changin', which I actually knew this song. It's a Bob Dylan song. So that was that was something that I also connected with that made it a lot more special. And there was a soloist who actually was in the first choir. She had returned for the university choir. I noticed a couple people that were in both, it seemed, and she did a great job. It was kind of mezzo forte, almost like outside voice, less than inside voice, kind of like making a statement, getting a point across, and standing out. The choir at first was pretty mezzo piano, kind of letting the soloist have their spotlight. The piano was being played as well. There is kind of a sense of recitative singing alongside, where there weren't many complex notes being added in with the music. It was more of just recitative. It was more either one note for a few words or one note being sang for each word. There were 4 groups, it seemed this time, or the 4 that I have learned in class and that I could recognize. There's soprano, the alto, the tenor, and the bass.
They're kind of set up on the same way. So after the climax, in a small pause, each group kind of joined in verse after. With the bass and the tenor and the alto, and while it was getting louder at this point, it also seemed like the resolution was going on, because they slowly kind of joined it at the end of the piano. For the second performance of the choir, actually switching numbers, and something I noticed with this they were the most straightforward and the last ones that I found music so long. It was very, very to the point and almost textbook, straight lines on the beat, everything. So the choir could definitely tell where they needed to be all the time, and they were. Since he has a bit of a more absolute demeanor in comparison to the last one. Almost the first song, La La La, shouldn't I tell it to you? And it was a cappella. The choir was singing to each other, standing back on back and forth, having a conversation. There was communication going on, a lot of reciting voices said in a different manner. Most of the songs were pretty mezzo on the piano, almost like speaking, and there were 2 prominent parts I remember, and there was some la la being said and some ha-has at the same time. And both of those were pretty everything was pronunciated well, so la 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 from one group, ha 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 from the other group. And the final song that the university choir performed was pretty cool because the composer of the song actually came out and he composed this work. He has an exam prompt and actually.
And I did overhear at the beginning when the choir members were mingling with the crowd. I heard a surprise. One of them told some guys that apparently I think he knew, and that was that all the choirs were going to come together at the end and do a final piece. And it worked so well. It was a great ending. It was great to see everyone come together, see that many people working together. And it was also cool because this song, they also used the organ. So the resident organist of UA, I guess, they came out and played the organ beautifully behind the voices. And something that we were kind of told before this piece by the first conductor is that when everyone sings together, hearts sync. Studies have shown that, or just it's a well-known fact. And that was pretty cool because even though I wasn't singing with them, I kind of I feel like that same sync just listening to the music. So the last song that the university choir performed was pretty syllabic. This song was very melismatic. So there were many notes to each word, many notes to certain syllables, which created a very legato feel, very song-like. When you think of a song, almost soulful. At first, the organ seemed pretty staccato when you were everywhere but the chorus of the work. Once everyone began singing kind of in harmony, the organ would switch to a harmonious legato to match that. There were times where they split the song and there were voices singing that were more in the lower register, other voices were more on the higher register, and the performers showed great emotion at their loudest points. And that emotion you could see in their face, and the composer and the conductor, you could see it as well, and we, the congregation, could feel it. At the end, there was a great standing ovation. There were people that even jumped up and were cheering and saying certain people's names, which I thought was pretty endearing. And realizing that it was the Winter Choral Showcase, I understood kind of how much work they had been putting into this leading up to the point, even if they started at the beginning of the semester, mid-semester, any of that. A lot of work seemed to be put into this, and they were kind of showcasing everything that they may have learned, put together throughout the semester, throughout the season. So that was pretty cool to be a part of and to witness, and I definitely will be going to a few more concerts off the record, just because now that I know people in them, I want to go support them. But yeah, I'm excited for the next concert that I will attend. Thank you.